Throw away, because my husband's family knows my main. I never thought I'd be here, fists shaking over a keyboard. But if I don't write this, I'm going to detonate. My mother-in-law, Linda, has despised me since the first handshake. I'm the wrong everything in her eyes. Too independent, too career, not passive enough for her golden boy, Nate. For 6 years, I kept the peace with strained smiles and diplomatic phone calls, the way you do when you think love can smooth jagged edges. It couldn't. Last winter, I landed a promotion at the tech firm where I'd been grinding for years. Same company, new title, salary almost doubled. The catch? The job was based 3 states away. Nate was ecstatic. The schools were better. The pay meant he could finally launch the woodworking side hustle he'd dreamed of, and our 8-year-old Mason could grow up near mountains instead of strip mall sprawl. I floated the idea of selling our starter home and upgrading closer to my new office. Linda heard before we even finished dessert at Sunday dinner, thanks to a cousin addicted to group chats. She erupted. How dare I drag her only grandchild away? How could I betray family values for a paycheck? Every call after that was her crying to Nate, him pinching the bridge of his nose, me staying silent so I wouldn't spit something unforgivable. She insisted we let her buy the house to keep it in the family. We refused politely. She pushed harder, threatening to show up at open houses and scare buyers. Nate blocked her number for a week. Peace was short-lived. I guess I should rewind, because any sane reader will wonder how we got here. The first time I met Linda was over pot roast at her mahogany dining table. Nate and I had been dating 3 months. I brought wine. She sniffed the label and said, "Cabernet can be bitter, dear. Maybe next time choose a Merlot?" Translation: "You got the wrong grape, rookie." She asked where my parents vacationed. When I answered staycations because medical bills, she switched topics so fast my ears popped. She wanted pedigree. I offered student loan reality. During our engagement, she insisted on hosting an etiquette brunch, where she corrected my napkin placement and told Nate's cousins I was ambitious, the kind of adjective that sounds like a compliment until you know her. The day of our wedding, she wore cream, not white, but close enough to raise eyebrows. I ignored whispers because I was marrying Nate, not his mother. Rookie mistake number 2. For years, her sabotage was low grade, undermining comments, surprise visits timed to when I had looming deadlines, gifting Mason noisy plastic toys after I asked for books. Nothing jail-worthy, just enough microcuts to keep me bleeding patience. Nate called her out occasionally, but Linda weaponized tears, and it's hard to argue against a crying mother if you've been conditioned since birth. When I returned to work after maternity leave, Linda offered to help and then announced to her church friends that I cared more about corporate ladders than bedtime stories. One church lady emailed me an article about children of working mothers suffering from attachment issues. I replied with a peer-reviewed study proving independent kids thrive. She left me on red. So by the time the promotion news dropped, tensions were coiled tight. I told her face to face, hoping honesty would blunt the impact. She chewed her roast chicken, set down the fork, and said, "So you're taking my grandson away?" Not a question. Then she looked at Nate like he was a recruit who'd failed a loyalty test. I offered numbers, better salary, relocation package, schools with STEM labs. She responded with silence thick enough to butter. The next day, she emailed Nate an article about metropolitan crime rates and CC'd me. Subject line: "Is money worth risking Mason's safety?" I drafted 7 furious replies, deleted them all, and told Nate we needed boundaries. We wrote an email together explaining the move was final. We loved her involvement, but needed support, not guilt. She responded with a single emoji, a broken heart. Selling the house became the lightning rod. It wasn't fancy, 3-bed colonial with beige vinyl siding, but it was ours. Linda had helped with the down payment as a gift. Nate had receipts proving so, but she acted like it gave her veto power. She paraded hypothetical buyers from her church through the property without notice, telling them to imagine raising babies here. One woman accidentally walked in on me folding laundry and screamed. That night, I changed the locks. 2 Fridays ago, everything detonated. It was the last day before Mason's spring break. I took the day off to finalize inspection paperwork. Nate was in the garage sanding a table. Around 11, I realized the school's number hadn't sent its usual attendance text. I shrugged, software glitch, and kept packing boxes. At 2:37 p.m., Mason's teacher called. Just confirming Mason was picked up by his grandmother for his orthodontist appointment, she said. My stomach plummeted. There was no appointment. There was no permission. There was only Linda. I tried dialing her, straight to voicemail. Nate tried. Same. We sped to her place. Empty driveway, curtains drawn. I checked urgent care clinics, hospitals, the police log. Nothing. Minutes stretched into an elastic nightmare. 4 hours later, her minivan rolled into her cul-de-sac. Mason jumped out, cheeks tear-streaked. He bolted into my arms, babbling that Grandma said I was stealing him away forever, and she needed special time to convince him to stay. She'd driven him to a theme restaurant 2 counties over, no car seat, just seat-belted, feeding him lollipops while railing against me. She told him I'd fire the movers in anger and we'd stay if he cried enough. I filed a kidnapping report. The officer's eyebrow twitched. I could see him mentally downgrading it to custody misunderstanding, but Mason's statement about no car seat and Linda's refusal to answer her phone swayed him. She was arrested for felony interference with custody and child endangerment. Nate posted her bail. I didn't argue. I needed her free for what came next. Revenge, to me, isn't screaming or public humiliation. It's methodical extraction of control. I hired Gloria Davenport, a family lawyer rumored to be shark enough to smell blood in Wi-Fi packets. We petitioned for an emergency protective order barring Linda from contact with Mason. Approved in 48 hours. Linda's calls became voicemails of wheedling apologies spliced with blame. I archived them. Next, I weaponized the house. Showings only when Linda was scheduled at her dialysis volunteer shift. Potential buyers loved the place. Linda heard through her church grapevine, stormed by on a day we weren't showing, and found a locked door and a bright orange no trespass sign signed by the county sheriff. Her screamed threats echoed across the street ring cameras. I downloaded every clip. Gloria filed a civil suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress on Mason. Damages sought. 150 grand. Realistic? Probably settled lower, but Linda didn't have it. Her only asset was her house. Mortgage almost paid. She panicked. Tried to get Nate to drop it. Nate unleashed years of frustration in one call I recorded with his consent. He told her she'd chosen this hill and could choke on the dust. While the lawsuit crawled, I escalated quietly. Linda prided herself on coordinating the church's children ministry. Background checks are annual. I forwarded the police report and protective order to the committee chair, a pragmatic woman named Cynthia. Within a week, Linda was temporarily relieved of duties pending review. Translation: she was done. Linda retaliated by rallying family. Uncle Gary left me a voicemail calling me a corporate succubus. I transcribed it, added it to evidence for a harassment restraining order extension to include phone communications. Granted. Through all this, Mason asked me one question repeatedly. Why does Grandma hate you? I told him the truth suitable for 8 years old. Some people blame others when they feel like their world is changing. That blame is wrong, but it's theirs, not ours. He absorbed it. One night he drew a picture of our new house with a giant "No Grandmas Allowed" sign. I laughed, but inside I filed the image next to the voicemails, more proof of emotional harm. The day of the civil mediation arrived. Linda shuffled in with a cheap attorney. Gloria and I presented a timeline: abduction, neglect of car seat laws, psychological manipulation, repeated harassment. We played the Ring camera clip where Linda screamed, "I'll burn this house before I let her take my baby." The mediator's face drained. Linda's lawyer whispered frantic math. Settlement offered. The full $150,000, paid through sale of Linda's house, plus a written apology read aloud to Mason in a child psychologist's office. I accepted. The apology would be recorded, preserving Linda's admission for eternity. I thought revenge would taste like champagne. It tasted like cold water, clear, refreshing. 6 weeks after the plea deal, movers loaded our pods as cameras rolled. Linda drove by once, windows up, face a wax mask. She couldn't stop the sale. She'd forfeited all standing. When Mason waved goodbye to the only house he'd known, he was smiling. We landed in the new city and exhaled. But revenge wasn't finished. Linda still had her reputation among relatives who thought the settlement excessive. They hadn't heard Mason's voice cracking as he recounted the abduction. For Thanksgiving, I mailed every relative a flash drive. On it, the police report, Linda's apology video, the Ring camera clip, Uncle Gary's voicemail, and Mason's drawing. No commentary, no note. Information is the purest solvent. It dissolves facades. Within days, apologies flooded Nate's phone. Uncle Gary sent a fruit basket. I donated it to a shelter, kept the note. Linda was effectively excommunicated from her gossip army. Silence seemed to unmoor her. She emailed Nate, subject line, "Please." He forwarded it to Gloria. Revenge. Phase 2 hit her finances. I sold Linda's settlement debt to a collections attorney who specializes in aggressive liens. Interest accrues monthly. Her rent checks pass through him first. She called Nate screaming that I was financially waterboarding her. He hung up. Some readers will ask where Nate's father is. Gary Sr. died when Nate was in high school. Leaving Linda a comfortable policy, she stretched into bridge club and ministers' luncheons. She calls herself a widow like a title. Hardship, in her mind, grants immunity. 2 months after the move, Mason won second place in the district science fair with a project on renewable energy. Linda read about it on Facebook and sent a congratulatory email addressed only to Mason. Nate deleted it. Mason celebrated with us at an ice cream parlor overlooking the river. He said, "I don't miss Grandma. Is that bad?" I told him honesty is never bad. Revenge. Phase 3 involved taxes. Linda had claimed head of household filing status the previous year because she supported Mason. I forwarded evidence of our full support to the IRS whistleblower portal. 6 weeks later, Linda received an audit notice. She called Nate, voice trembling, asked how to handle it. Nate said, "Maybe ask your church friends." Click. Around Halloween, a friend still near our old town sent me a photo. Linda walking past our former house, which now belonged to a young couple. She stared at the porch like she expected ghosts. That image satisfied something primal, territory lost and irretrievable. People lecture about forgiveness like it's a universal solvent. I forgive mistakes. I forgive ignorance. I don't forgive deliberate harm to my child. Some lines redraw borders. Cross them, and you expatriate yourself from my compassion. I often think about alternate timelines. If Linda had accepted the move, she could have visited every holiday, spoiled Mason with too much sugar, complained about traffic, and been a beloved, mildly irritating presence. Instead, she chose abduction, actions, consequences, arithmetic. On Mason's 9th birthday, we held a small party. 4 classmates, 2 neighbor kids, balloon arch, homemade cupcakes. He blew out candles, wished for a puppy. After presents, the kids watched a movie. An unknown number left a voicemail. Linda, sobbing, saying she missed my baby. Blocked. Sometimes I worry revenge made me colder. Then I remember the drive to the police station and hear Mason's shaky voice. Vengeance didn't shape me. Linda's choices did. I merely sharpened the mirror and let her see herself. For legal finality, Linda's plea deal resulted in 3 years probation, mandatory parenting classes, and community service. Violate probation, and she's looking at a year in county jail. Probation officer visits randomly. I receive notifications. So far, she passes. Fear works. Nate's relationship with Linda is dust, but his spine is titanium now. He used to minimize conflict, hoping time would fix things. He watched his son cry in a witness interview. Time doesn't rewind. We've built routines here. Saturday mornings, Nate at the farmer's market selling Cedar State outlines, Mason volunteering at the library's Lego club, me writing product specs in a coffee shop where staff know my order. Life is forward momentum, yet I still lock the front door even in daylight. I still glance in rear-view mirrors for silver minivans. Hypervigilance is a scar, not a choice. Dr. Ruiz says trauma therapy can sand the edges. I say maybe they'll stay to remind me I did what had to be done. Gloria asked recently if I wanted to convert the settlement to a structured trust for Mason's college. I said yes. One day, he'll open a letter explaining how his tuition was funded by the court's valuation of his grandmother's misdeeds. Poetic, in a balance sheet way. Will I ever speak to Linda again? Probably at Mason's high school graduation, from a distance enforced by security if necessary. She'll ask for a hug. He'll decide. I won't intervene, but I'll be wearing a dress with pockets so I can clutch my phone if she tries anything. Until then, I live, I parent, I excel at my job, and I sleep 8 hours most nights. Revenge, delivered correctly, is surprisingly restful. Some commenters will insist I'm cold. They're right. Cold preserves. Warmth spoils. Mason deserved preservation. I'll end with a detail Linda once mocked. In college, I majored in mathematics before switching to computer science. She laughed, said numbers were unladylike. Funny how digits ended her crusade. $150,000 settlement, 300-yard order, 3 years probation, 0 forgiveness. Actions, consequences, simple math.